Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I did a video a while back about a time I was in court, and the judge said, we're going to take a break right now. I've got to do something a little different. And she called up some people to the front, and she actually told us, she goes, you guys might want to stick around. This is interesting. And a young man, dressed very, very nicely, came up there with his mother. And the judge explained that apparently he'd been in front of her for some infraction a while back. And she looked at him at that time and said, in essence, look, it looks to me like you can go two different ways in your life right now. And if I sentence you right now for what you've done, it might send you down the wrong road. But she knew that he'd had problems at school. And she said, you know something? I'm going to give you a break. I'm not going to sentence you right now. If you're willing to do this, if you'll make me a promise that you'll go back to school and get your high school diploma and come back into court and show me your diploma, I will spin this around and I won't sentence you the way I would otherwise. First time the kid had been in court, so she thought, you know something? This can either be a make or break, So that day, kid was there, dressed very nicely, walked up, and she said, what do you have to show me? And he pulled out his diploma and showed it to the judge. And I'm telling you, it was one of the most emotional things I've ever seen in a courthouse. It was unbelievable. And I have no idea what happened to the kid after that. I have no idea. But that's the kind of thing where you look at it and go, okay, here's a judge trying to make a difference. Here's a court actually looking at something and saying, you know something, there's a couple different ways we can go here. And I've talked before about discretion, where judges have it, police officers have it, prosecutors have it, where they can look at something and say, look, we can either throw the book at somebody because the book is there and it can be thrown, or we can look at the situation and say, is there something else going on here that maybe we can get something better out of this situation? Okay, so several people sent me this story, Keith, Kevin, and Dan, as well as it was widely reported around the world, and it ought to be. Josh Marcus wrote this story for The Independent in the UK. Detroit judge who gave drug dealer a second chance swears him in as a lawyer 16 years later. So a drug dealer is in court to be sentenced. And the judge looked at him and said, you know something? I'm going to give you a second chance. Let's see what you make of it. So Edward Martell's journey from being a crack dealer to becoming an attorney began when a Michigan judge gave him a break. 16 years after Michigan Judge Bruce Morrow helped a troubled young man avoid a lengthy prison sentence for drug dealing, the same judge swore in the one-time criminal to practice law in the state. And that's actually a daunting task, to go from where he was, to get his college degree, his law degree, pass the bar exam, pass character and fitness, knowing that he'd had a criminal past, doing all of that and accomplishing it. This is an impressive thing. Martell dropped out of school at 17, had been in a single-parent house. He'd begun drug dealing, and he wound up in Mr. Morrow's courtroom in 2005. He'd been arrested in a sting in Dearborn Heights, Michigan. Instead of giving Martell a lengthy prison sentence for making and selling crack, the judge instead challenged the man to complete 3 years of probation and come back to the court as an executive. And he could have gotten 20 years in prison. The judge is looking at the young man thinking to himself, 20 years in prison, what's that going to do for him? Or is there some more potential here? So the judge said, I can imagine Ed never thinking this is where the love could come from. And he's talking about the economically depressed environment and problems with police and being in handcuffs. And he said, he understood, I believed, he could be anything he wanted to be. After completing his probation, the man went to community college in 2008, where he said instructors discouraged him from pursuing law due to his criminal background, and instead said he should consider one of the trades. And he told the newspaper, at the time I was just a felon with a dream. They advised me to study heating and cooling. Not that there's anything wrong with heating and cooling, but they had said, basically, you can't become a lawyer because of your criminal background. It's more difficult, but it's possible, obviously. So Mr. Martell graduated 3 years later, and he went on to pursue an undergraduate degree and then law school at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law, which is the law school I taught at for 10 years. He clerked at the Federal Public Defender's Office in Washington, D.C., and he worked as a legal researcher. The aspiring lawyer and the judge kept in touch throughout the process, and the judge eventually vouched for Mr. Martell as part of the Michigan Bar Examination's lengthy background check process. So when you go through character and fitness, they ask you for your resume, your history, your criminal record, everything. You get fingerprinted. They do everything. So somewhere along the line, it's going to come up that, yes, he was arrested, he was charged, he was found guilty of dealing drugs. And that's going to be a red flag, unlike the typical snag you run into on an application. And the judge who sentenced him on that actually said, no, give me a call. I'll talk to you about this kid. Now he's a man, but I'll talk to you about this guy. And I'll vouch for him. And I think he'll make a good attorney. So this year, his dream came true. Martell told Deadline Detroit, which first reported the story, I sobbed like a baby. Judge Morrow attended his final confirmation hearing, handing him a handkerchief once the aspiring lawyer became emotional. Now that handkerchief is framed in Mr. Martell's office at the Perkins Law Group, which is a criminal law firm. The Michigan judge, when asked about this case, quoted a lyric from the Velvelettes, which is a group from Motown. Everybody needs love. It's a crazy cliche, but some defendants, that's what they need too, he told Deadline Detroit. If you believe like I believe, that there but for the grace of God go, you and me. It took some intelligence to get in and out of the kind of trouble he got into. I told him, you could be my son. Let's see how far you can go. And man, he hasn't finished yet. So this is a great story with a great ending. And, I don't know much more than what's in the story there about what the judge saw from the bench. And I don't know how many judges I've appeared in front of. I've appeared in front of a lot of judges. And I've seen the full range of judges. I've seen judges who have been on the bench so long and jaded by the experience that they don't spend much time looking at somebody in front of them and actually trying to analyze what's going on. I've seen other judges who are new to the bench, spend a lot of time on everything. And I've also seen judges who are on the bench and have gained a lot of experience and insight. And so you don't know if it's a young judge or an old judge or what kind of judge it's going to be that's going to actually look at a particular case and analyze it and analyze the person in front of them. Because, there are lawsuits, civil litigation, and the bulk of my practice is lemon law, lawsuits, civil litigation, two parties suing each other. But if a judge does criminal stuff, if the judge actually oversees criminal cases, in front of him are two parties that are scrapping, the prosecution and the defense. But at the heart of the case is a defendant, and there might be victims also. But the defendant is the one who, at the end of the day, if they're found guilty, is standing in front of the judge, and the judge has got to make some decisions. And nowadays, they've tried to make some of this more uniform so that before you get sentenced, you'll often go meet with people in the probation department or some other department that's going to interview you and do a background check on you, and then write up a report to the judge and say, here's a report on this person. So it's not just a judge glancing at a file and saying, you did this, you get that. They'll actually read this report and go, okay, it appears here that there's this that mitigates this, but then again, there's this, which doesn't look too good. And they'll go through that report and try to figure it out. And I've seen some judges who are very, very good at that and analyzing it, but also I've seen judges who will stop and ask the defendant, some questions. Why do you think you're here today? How'd you get here? What got you here? And we all know that if you're in court and you're about to get sentenced, you're going to spin your answers in a way that you think might help your case. We understand that. The judge understands that too. But getting back to the original case that I talked about with the kid who had dropped out of high school apparently, and the judge realizing that, wait a second, if I sentence him and he goes to jail, he ain't finishing high school, most likely. On the other hand, if I sentence him to finish high school, she didn't call it that, I'm sure, but she just said basically, look, you can be sentenced by me and go that way, or you can go back to school and get your high school diploma. It was a creative sentence. But I've not met anybody who I've told that story to who said, oh, that was wrong. Everyone goes, that was the right thing to do there. That's the right thing to do. And I assure you, if we could find that kid today, and we couldn't because I don't know his name and I don't know much more about him. I just saw that one story. And I saw it happen in court. But if you could find that kid today, I'm confident that he would tell you that that was a moment in his life that whether it completely changed everything, I don't know. Full 180 degrees, I don't know. But he's certainly in a better place now than where he would have been otherwise. And I'm not just saying because he avoided jail. I'm saying because it probably helped him to get the high school diploma, made him a better person, made him appreciate things, and hopefully learn from the mistake that put him in the courtroom in the first place. And hopefully he understands that he got that big break. So in this case, the judge saying to the man, look, I'm going to suggest that you go to school and get your act together and do something with your life. And the fact that he goes and becomes a lawyer and stays in touch with the judge the entire time. Look what I'm doing now. I'm doing this. Look what I'm doing now. I'm doing this, And then when it comes time, and, I've known people who've gone to law school and couldn't become an attorney because they couldn't pass character and fitness. It's not that common because most people with records know that they couldn't become an attorney, so they don't bother trying. This guy knew that there was always a chance he could graduate law school and not practice law. He knew that was a possibility. He still did it. So I respect the guy, but I also respect the judge for spotting the potential and also recognizing, hey, you know something? Some people go off on a path and it takes one correction to knock them back on the path. And now they're back on the path, they're good to go. There are some people who don't learn. And I'm not saying that I could spot somebody and go, yeah, that person would learn, that person wouldn't learn. But this judge here, Judge Morrow, apparently spotted this and it worked out. So it's an amazing story. Josh Marcus wrote it. Deadline Detroit first published it though. Keith, Kevin, and Don all sent it to me. Dan sent it to me. And it was Edward Martell's journey from crack dealer to attorney began when a Michigan judge gave him a break. Detroit judge who gave a drug dealer a second chance swears him in as a lawyer 16 years later. Unbelievable. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. There's a fine line between fishing and just standing on the shore like an idiot.